So hello everyone and welcome to our fifth seminar in the Spotlight seminar series, Spotlight, Timeframes, and Expectations. Now I really hope a lot of our agents watch this seminar because if you, and more importantly your client, understand the timeframes involved with listing a home and getting its marketing prepared, you're going to find that you're going to be operating in a far less stressful environment. So I want to start off by saying we've got an amazing turnaround time. We've got our workflow optimized to the point where we can generate more media and marketing material than other companies and in a fraction of the time. This presentation is about timeframes, but it's most importantly about giving you the knowledge to properly plot a strategy on getting your listing to market as smoothly as possible. So after doing this for years, I can tell you straight up what leads to the most stressful situations when listing a home. It's when your buyer, or in some cases the agent, wants to rush a listing to the market. They want their house on the market yesterday. This really puts an undue amount of pressure on the listing agent to get everything pushed through as fast as possible, often with their client hounding them the whole way along. I'm sure I don't have to tell you about this. If you've been in the industry for any length of time, I'm sure you've come across this kind of situation. So this brings me to pretty much the most important piece of advice I have for this seminar today. Temper your client's expectations. Don't let them force you to rush to the market. Plan a time frame and strategy for getting to the market, and then tack on an extra day or two. Give yourself and your client some room to breathe. Allow for unforeseen circumstances. Maybe the client miscalculated the time it would take to clean and organize their home. Maybe a snowstorm leads to the photo shoot being canceled. Maybe no one's at home at the time of the photo shoot to let the photographer in at the scheduled photo time. Maybe you have another 2 listings on the go and you're slammed with the paperwork. There are so many bumps that can get hit along the way. Why not try and anticipate them? And it's not just about alleviating stress. It's about selling the home faster and for more money. Here are some graphs that I showed actually a few seminars ago that showed the number of visitors to some of the listing web pages that we have for some of the listings we do through the Spotlight program over time. So what I want you to see here is to look at how important the first day or two is in terms of your peak traffic. This is where you're by far and away going to have the most interest in your listing. You want to make sure that your listing looks amazing on day one. All the photos, virtual tour, media, websites, everything is online and looking its best. So why am I telling you this? You want to avoid a situation where your listing hits the market without all the photography and great media that we generate for you. It especially amazes me when I come across listings where the listing is loaded onto MLS before they even order photography. Without photographs, you're making a bad first impression with those prospective buyers that are part of this first day surge of traffic to your listing. This can be upwards of 95% of the traffic you're going to get over the lifespan of your listing. Those are prospective buyers that have already moved on and won't come back. Everyone looks at the photos first, and if the photos aren't there, there's a high chance they're going to move on to the next listing on their list. Losing out on this traffic can make the difference between a home that sits on the market for months with no showings and a listing that sells in the first week with multiple offers. Tell this to your client. You're the expert. They should listen to you. And you know what? Maybe they won't listen to you. Maybe they're the most stubborn SOBs you ever dealt with. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. We're still equipped to provide you with an amazing turnaround time and get things up and running as soon as possible. We understand that you can't always have an ideal client who understands properly preparing a listing for the market, but at least you can try and persuade them, or if nothing else, point to their mistake in not listening to you when they're forced to relist their property in a month. Okay, so now that I've got that rant out of the way, let's look into the specifics on timeframes for our marketing program, and specifically let's start at the beginning with photography. So once you place an order for a Spotlight marketing package, the first thing we do is coordinate photography. And the most common question we get is how fast can we get photography set up? How fast can we schedule that photo shoot of yours? What we suggest is giving at least 2 business days to get your photography scheduled. Don't get me wrong, we can do it quicker. In a lot of cases, we've actually had photography shoots scheduled within hours of an order being placed. But I'm trying to give you a realistic perspective on what to expect. Photographers get busy, especially during the hot seasons for real estate. Some of our photographers have days where they easily work 12 hours. Scheduling availability, location of the listing, client and agent availability. These factors all come into play when organizing a photo shoot. So plan to wait at least a couple of business days before you can get the photo shoot set up. And if you have any hyper-restrictive scheduling issues, you may have to adjust those expectations. Maybe your client can only have the photographer in the home during their 45-minute lunch break. Maybe this listing is extremely rural and requires extra travel time, making scheduling a little bit more difficult. Factors that limit your listing's flexibility for a photo shoot time can affect your photo shoot scheduling turnaround. And you know what? If you want to check on the available photographers, you can always just give us a call in advance. You can even do this before you've got the listing agreement signed. Give us a call, ask us about availability. You can even schedule a tentative photo shoot before you place an order. And as for the photo shoot itself as well, just a note, you should allow about 30 minutes to an hour for a photo shoot, depending on the size of the home. So you've planned your photo shoot. The photographer comes in and takes the photos. The next most common question is, when are my photos going to be ready? When can I get them in my hands? And my answer always is, by the following morning. However, we try and target getting photographs into our system the night they're taken. I want to stress that we can't guarantee that we can get photos up the night they're taken. If a photographer is busy, they can have a full day of photo shoots from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and even later sometimes, depending on daylight hours, which means they might have 8, 9, 10, even more photo shoots in a single day. Then they come home and they start their uploading, post-processing, and photo selection. They do their best to get everything done that night, but sometimes the volume of work requires that it bleeds into the following morning. So just remember that a photographer isn't just shooting your listing on any given day. So the photographer uploads your photographs into our system that night or the following morning. And as soon as they're done making their photo selections, what we do is we send you an email notification with the download links for your photographs. So you'll have in your possession the electronic copies of the photographs ready for MLS. Once your photographs are ready and receive that email notification, what this does is it also triggers a notification to our graphics design staff that we need to generate the virtual tour and feature sheets for your listing. So it's important to note that the photographers do not create the virtual tours and feature sheets. That's actually handled by our staff at the office. Our staff works until about 9 p.m., even on weekends. However, if the photographer uploads their photos into our system after these business hours, your virtual tour and feature sheet proofs will not be generated until the following morning. This generally falls in line with our target of having everything up and ready to go by the morning following your photo shoot. So once our design team creates your feature sheet, what we do is we send you an email with a proof of your feature sheet. You can request changes to your proof, or you can even make these edits yourself. We've got a self-serve online feature sheet editing tool. There's a link to get to that in the email that we send to you. And from that email, you can also even order print copies. For turnaround times for feature sheet printing, we target to print and ship them the same business day as long as they're ordered before noon. If not, they're going to be shipped the next business day. We ship via standard courier. Currently it's FedEx, but that might change. So standard shipping times just apply. For virtual tours, the timing is similar to the feature sheets. We generate the video shortly after we receive the notification that the photographs are ready. Now listen up, because this is actually a very important point that I'm about to bring up. If we have a listing description for your listing, either directly from you or from MLS, at least 24 hours in advance of the photo shoot, we can ensure that the virtual tour is complete with audio voiceover in the expected time frame. The important part to note about that is the part about submitting your listing description in advance, and here's why. Because we provide virtual tours with video as well as a professionally recorded a professionally recorded voiceover track, we have two components that need to be generated: the video and the audio voiceover. We use the listing description that you provide to generate the audio voiceover. And if we don't have this in advance of the photo shoot, the video for the virtual tour will be ready before the audio is recorded. This is not an issue as long as you supply us with the listing description in advance of the photo shoot, and we actually send out an email when every order is placed asking for the listing description ASAP for this very reason. However, if you don't submit the description in advance, we'll only have one of the two required components ready to create your final virtual tour. This isn't the end of the world. What we'll do if the audio voiceover isn't recorded is we'll actually create a temporary video virtual tour for you with no voiceover. Now this is just to ensure that there's at least something displayed on your website as soon as possible. Once we record the audio voiceover, what we'll do is we'll update the video with the voiceover track. Note that we typically record audio once per day, and it's usually late in the evenings when we have time available at the recording studio. So for this reason, it's good to get in the habit of sending us these listing descriptions early. Like I mentioned before, try and do it 24 hours in advance of your photo shoot. By the way, this timeframe for virtual tour actually only applies to the standard marketing package. If you order our deluxe marketing package, which includes like a videographed live video walkthrough of the home, there's more time required to actually edit the video footage. So expect an extra 24 to 48 hours to have the video walkthrough completed. That being said, if you do order the deluxe marketing package, we still do generate a temporary standard virtual tour for your listing in the meantime. So your listing isn't devoid of a virtual tour while you wait for the video footage to be edited. Now moving on to the next segment, our advertising strategy and its timeframes. We advertise on a ton of social media, classified ad networks, and real estate websites. An important note on the timing of our advertising: we make sure that your listing is fully ready with pictures and on MLS before we advertise to these sites. We do this for a couple of reasons. Most importantly, we want to ensure that we're permitted to advertise your listing publicly, which we know is the case once it's on MLS. And secondly, we also want to make sure that the ever so important photos are posted when we advertise to ensure that your listing looks perfect the second our post goes live. Bit of an aside as well on timing. Some of the sites that we advertise to, these ones that are circled here, they only update every 24 hours. So there's sometimes a delay in your listings showing up on these websites. So just be aware of that. Also, there's another important advertising timing point to note. We don't advertise on Kijiji and Facebook until the final virtual tour is ready. That's the final virtual tour with the audio. We don't post the temporary video. And the reason for that is because what we do want to do is we want to make sure that we've got the final virtual tour video, because Kijiji and Facebook both embed the YouTube video we create in their posts that we put on their sites. We don't post the temporary videos because in order to update that video with the audio track, what we have to actually do is we have to delete the old video and create a new one. And in doing this, if we post to Kijiji and Facebook prior to having the finalized version, it will create a broken link on Kijiji and Facebook. This is why we wait until the virtual tour is finalized. Yet another important reason to get your listing description in early. Also, I haven't really mentioned this yet, but it's important to note that another reason to submit your listing description early is because of Google. If Google indexes your site with a full, proper English listing description before it's a chance to index other companies' websites that have access to MLS information, it will give your listing a boost in Google search. I won't go into the specifics on optimizing everything for Google because we actually covered this in a previous seminar a few weeks ago. You can always feel free to watch these seminars, by the way, that we did previously. You just go to spotlight.centraltoronto.ca/seminars, likely the page you're currently watching this on. Scroll down to the bottom, we've got our back catalog of seminars down there. The one I'm referencing now is called Getting the Most Out of Google. So the moral of a lot of the story is submit your listing description early to avoid delays in getting everything prepared. There are a couple other topics I want to cover, starting with the board data. In order for Spotlight to function properly and for Spotlight to be as automated as it is, we use listing data from the board to ensure that your listing information is accurate, up-to-date, and reflective of what's on your board. Because we deal with dozens of different boards, all with different policies and procedures, the frequency with which we receive board data varies. You can contact us if you're curious about the data pull frequency for your board, but many boards, including Korea's DDF feed, only update once a day. So any changes to the information on your listing can take up to a day to be reflected on our site. This also means that it might take up to a day before we're automatically notified that your listing's even been loaded onto MLS. So to help alleviate these delays, especially if your listing is with a board that only updates once a day, you can send us the MLS number and important information about the listing like pricing, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, that sort of thing, so we can manually put the information on the listing's web page that we're providing for you. Once we eventually sync with the board, the data will automatically update to what the board tells us. But during that window when we're waiting for the board data, you can rest assured that your listing has all the relevant information displayed on the website. Letting us know the MLS number and that you've broker loaded your listing in advance can also help speed up the advertising process, as we officially know that you've loaded your listing onto MLS, so we can start the advertising process accordingly. This is again especially important on those boards that I mentioned before that only update once daily, because we don't have any way of knowing when you're broker load until we sync up the data with the board. Letting us know once your listing is broker loaded will also help us speed up any MLS assist services that we provide. Depending on your board, some of them allow us to submit photos and virtual tour links directly to the board. Again, if you're not sure if we provide the service for your board and brokerage, you can always inquire and we can let you know. If you let us know that your listing is broker loaded, what we can do is we can go in as soon as possible and send in pictures and links to the board. There's one thing I do want to stress though. We always suggest that agents load their own photos and links when they load their listing onto MLS, and that our service should be more of a double check to ensure that everything's up and on the board as it should be. The reason for this is because many boards only allow us to submit listing photos and links during their local business hours, the board's local business hours. And every board I know of closes around 5 p.m. and is usually closed on weekends. So if you're loading a listing on Friday night, there often isn't anything that we can do to submit photos and links to the board until Monday morning, which is why we stress that you shouldn't rely on our services to upload these photos. After all, you don't want your listing on MLS without photos, especially for a whole weekend if you're relying on us to get them up there, especially because of how important those first few hours on the market are. The only way to guarantee that your listing has photos the second it's on MLS is by loading the photos at the time of broker loading. So regardless of whether or not you load photos and links or we submit them to the board for you, we will check and verify that everything is properly loaded onto the board for every listing. So Online Office, and that's century21.ca's backend portal, for Online Office, we upload photos and links, and that's another service that we provide. Online Office typically updates and adds new listings overnight when it pulls data from the board. So if your listing is live on MLS on a Monday, Online Office most likely will have your listing in their system on Tuesday. Once we see your listing on Online Office, we're going to load the pictures and links for you. For those of you, though, that load your listings onto Online Office manually, just let us know when you load your listing and we can go in and upload the pictures and links. Manually loading your listing is a practice that we recommend, and it's one that can potentially save you a day or two of waiting for Online Office to automatically create your listing from the board's data. So with that, I'm going to show you a bit of a summary timeline of what you can expect for a typical listing. Again, this should just be a rough estimate, but it's a good rough timeline to follow. Remember, this isn't a guaranteed timeline, just a good idea of what to expect. So starting on day 1, you place your order. On day 2, while you're waiting for your photo shoot to be taken, we suggest you send us the listing description and get the home ready for the photo shoot. Day 3 is the day of the photo shoot, and while there's a good chance we'll have your photos ready that night, expect photos, virtual tours, feature sheets, etc. to be completed on the morning of day 4. On day 4 in the afternoon, you load your listing to MLS. On day 5, we upload everything to Online Office and ensure that advertising is complete. Again, if you notify us in advance, some of this advertising and Online Office uploading can happen as well on day 4. Again, if I were you though, I'd always give an extra couple of days for breathing room. However, this is generally a good guideline to follow. So with a little organization, planning ahead, and making sure that your client understands the importance of not rushing to the market, It is easy to accommodate any unforeseen circumstance and avoid those stressful situations. Take your time, give your planned market an extra day or two to account for the unexpected. But don't forget, if you ever do get stressed, give us a call and we'll do our best to help you overcome the situation and melt that stress away. So that concludes the prepared portion of the seminar. I can now open the floor to any questions you might have.